What's up, guys? It's John Dominique, the sole proponent, here to shed the light of consciousness on your self-worth. So I believe self-esteem is a subject that's rarely talked about, and I think it's important. So here I am. So I want to share my experience of my spiritual awakening so I can offer a higher meaning to the story of Jesus Christ. I found that it actually is representative of the soul. It's not meant to be about a man. When you go to the church, most Christian churches will tell you that, the soul is a part of you, but you're not a part of the soul, which pretty much means we're separate and we feel separate from the soul. And the problem is we can never feel good enough about ourselves because it's the source of our self-worth and our self-esteem. So without, a good connection with the soul, we run around trying, to replace that feeling of infinite divinity. So, we've got wars because we need to get gold, we need to get oil, we need to get diamonds. We've got all these things to try to compensate for it, but there's actually no replacement. And I've had a spiritual awakening that has actually, proven this to me. And I have a hunch that other people feel the same lack of self-worth. And, I've had that struggle myself all my life. I can never quite ever put my finger on it as to what was wrong, but I knew there was something in the background that was kind of, it was like a low level feeling of anxiety, really. It wasn't anything, that was sticking out right blatantly. But, the bottom line was I pretty much felt worthless about myself, and I could not ever find out what was the reason. And, being a Catholic, the traditional belief is that, Jesus is what saves us, and that's our way to go to heaven. So I believed in Jesus as a man, though. That was the thing about it. I was brought up Catholic, and the people around me, there was so much pressure from my family, the people around me, to believe in this same religion that they did, because ultimately I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to feel part of something. I didn't want to feel out there by myself, because the last thing I needed was rejection and abandonment, because I felt worthless enough as it was. So there's nothing wrong with wanting to be a Catholic or being a Christian, but it's not our ultimate identity. So I'm realizing that the story of Jesus Christ is meant to show us that our true identity is at one with the spirit, one with the soul. That's who we really are. And the ego, or who we take ourselves to be, is what separates us from that. So in reality, the ego is a metaphor for the devil, and Jesus is a representative of the soul. So it's like, our true nature is that infinite worth, infinite divinity, and who we take ourselves to be. That first angel in heaven that fell, that's a piece of us. That's a part of us, right? There's an unconscious longing to reach for something that's going to give us pleasure, or move away from something that's going to give us pain, or we want something different than what is. So that's that first angel in heaven that fell, and mankind feels separate from God. That's that first angel. It separated itself from God. It thought it separated itself from God. It's not really, there's really ever no separation, but we've been fooled into thinking that we are separate. And that causes deep, painful feelings of loss. Like we lost a big part of ourselves. Like, there's a hole there where the soul is supposed to be, but we don't know that hanging on to who we think we are is stopping us from feeling our soul and feeling our self-worth. So it's kind of an unconscious pride thing, really, because the pleasures of the ego, foundation, security, that's like unconsciously motivating our actions pretty much. We don't realize it, but there's that unconscious pride, and then there's like this peer pressure to follow through with what everyone else is doing and to jump on board with the status quo and to keep things the way they are. There's like a fear of losing who we think we are, and fear of not knowing what's going to happen to us, the fear of the unknown. If we let go of who we think we are, what's going to happen? The traditional idea is that we're going to go to hell, pretty much. Or we're very impressionable as children, and what they teach us kind of tends to stick with us. It's not, it just doesn't wash off with a hot shower. And all the fears that are involved with that as well tend to stick with us through our adult life. And, we end up playing these roles. The ego plays these roles of either, feeling like a small deficient child, or, acting as a grown up judgmental adult. And we swing between these roles. We feel bad or you feel good. It's one or the other. It's always like these dichotomies. There's like these splits. The only thing that can heal these splits is the soul, because the soul is one with infinite unity. It's always a universal oneness, a union with the Creator. So, believing in Jesus as a man does not work anymore in these days and times, because we're always going to feel that missing connection with who we really are. We've been distracted. We think there's something else more important than being in union with the soul. The solution to our problem at this point is to pretty much disidentify from who we think we are, right? This ego is not who we take ourselves to be, is not who we really are. It's not easy to do. But with God, all things are possible. The cornerstone of Christianity is pretty much John 3:16. He says, God gave his only begotten son because he so loved the world that he who believes. That's basically the basic meaning to that, is that there's a piece of God within us, which is the divinity within, which is the soul or the spirit. However you slice the deck, there's a divinity within us, right? And we're never separate from that. So God placed that in us because he loved us, right? That's the basic premise. And is, we take it to believe that God sent a man down to earth to save us because we're not good enough, sent to redeem ourselves from a human's blood sacrifice. That doesn't work, because we're missing the point. So, it's real easy to allow fear and doubt to creep into our minds and to make us second guess ourselves. The amount of work necessary to stay in connection with the soul is pretty heavy. So it's a lifelong process, and it goes by slowly. It's like we don't have any control over it, and that's part of the problem. The ego wants to try to control the way things happen. Now, what I recommend you do is maybe check out my blog at www.prizebeats1.com, and also help me spread the message by financially supporting my new ministry at www.patreon.com/John Dominique. So help me support this ministry. I'm wanting to start a gathering, a group of people that get together and talk about this kind of stuff. It's called Club Worth is what I plan to name it. I hope that I've shed some light on some things here that I think are important socially. People don't feel good enough because we lack, the awareness of what's really truly important. There's nothing else that's more important than the source of our self-worth and our self-esteem and our value. I mean, I went through my life feeling like, I was chasing this the whole time without realizing it. But once I found out that that's what I was needing and I wanted, then that's when things started to change. And I believe I have a calling to get up and share my experience so I can shed the light of consciousness on your self-worth. John Dominique, the Soul Proponent. Peace.